Recording in progress.
Okay. Hola. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Orange, call number 2. And wow, yeah, we made it this far. I'm really filled with awe at just how much there's been. And I was remembering it was more or less like last year where there was this idea, could we do this for a whole year? So orange means birthing something from many different layers and levels, and me just take a quick trip through the website without really having to go into it so much, primarily because we did go through this in the call 2 days ago or a day and a half ago, and Orange just goes so deep that we'll take the chance to go even deeper. So if you're interested in some of the topics that came up, that brought up a lot of these orangey elements, then you would go ahead and walk into the call. So let me take the iPad. Oh, I realized my screen wasn't on. All right, so let's make a new page. I'm gonna give a bit of an intro and then we're gonna have a conversation. Orange. Let's do orange. Let's go orange there. Kind of orange, orangey. Darker orange. That's kind of orange. Okay, so orange is what to you, to others, birthing, creativity, sexuality, deconstruction. And today we're going to be talking about more or less orange as the black. And we more or less like to spell it as that, like orange as the black hole. Going to the website, you see people go often to these spaces, and we can call it the womb. And I would bring up this one of my favorite documented experiences was by Jackie from Australia, who went to the universe, the expanded perspective of all that is, everything all at once. So we could perceive the black hole as this almost literal space in the universe where everything coexists all at once, the interstellar black hole. And Caroline from the UK is going to introduce us into the white hole. That could be quite interesting as well. Like, what is the white hole? So I would invite, a lot of you have been to like such spaces, and I'm sure some of you have been to the black hole, to maybe share some of your orange today. Like, what is that? Like, where do we go when we go where we go, whether you call it death or the womb or the dream state? And often it could literally be like a dark space. And it's definitely a space. And we have people in the inner dance community have actually explored the space. So I'm going to be borrowing some notes from Carolyn, who has this discipline in more or less documenting her experiences. Like she has a blog and she would write about some of her deeper inner dance experiences. And she does it in a rigorous manner, being someone from the psychiatric or psychological universe. And like experience would be one of the orange topics. And in the last call, we spoke about phenomenology as the study of experience, the philosophy of experience. That experience has something to do with the theory of knowledge. Like, how do we arrive at knowing through experience? You know, we were asking this question, is it possible to know something without experiencing it? And is it possible to experience something without knowing it? So phenomenology looks at that, and you know, often in the sciences, experiences is disregarded. It's especially subjective experience. What you go through isn't always part of objective knowledge. So phenomenological research would be an interesting way for us to present the inner dance to the world as something that might actually contribute to an understanding of either the world around us or the nature of our consciousness. This could be an amazing discipline for us to walk into. So that makes important the experiences of you and of others. Like, how do you start gathering phenomenological data, like subjective data? How not just, you know, like numerical, quantitative data, but qualitative data. So I made a little bit of a PowerPoint at the last minute, and I was able to gather some of Carolyn's notes, not just from her blog, but also from her messages, her email, or WhatsApp messages in past groups. Like, for example, when she was beginning to experiment with some of the new playlists. They're old now, but they were the new weird playlists. One of which is called Corpus Callosum. Like I do this in a sort of timeline so that we can track the black hole experiences of just one person. And one of the things I would like to ask is where do we go? Okay, so the black hole thing is often for me the scary thing, and I would love to bring it up because it might come up in your space when people kind of go there. As you can tell, there's not many things I can draw, but I can at least draw someone laying down in an inner dance space. Almost every call, I can draw this, at least. That's the limit of my art. But what happens if they don't arise from there, that they stay there for a long time? So like in Carolyn's experience, like I have these memories of Italy coming to me and saying, hi, I need some advice. Like this person is still there on the ground and she's not getting up, or she's laying down outside of her bedroom door when everyone else had gone back to normal. Carolyn's still kind of there, like acting like a baby or like an organism, or just that. She's just that, and no one can talk to her. She's just there. So what do I do? So I would tell Italy, leave her alone. Don't fix anything. Don't do anything. Leave her alone. She's totally good. She's fine. Okay. Don't break her out. Don't call her Carolyn because she's maybe someone else, something else altogether, and she's being a universe. So, would you have that either trust or intuition? It would be amazing to also hold her and touch her, but not as always a person, but as a cosmic baby or something, this and that. So, for example, if you go to this particular one, this is one of those moments like music stops, everyone leaves, and she's laying there. And I would love to tackle this word. I love it that she wrote this in her blog, like awe. And let's take this out. I would love to understand the connection between awe and wonder. And I think they are very, very orange indeed. Like awe is an emotion, and wonder follows awe. For me, awe is where it begins. Wonder is where we see the ends of it. Um, so yeah, I love these writings. Like in this particular one, my favorite would be my first rebirth word is a giggle, and then oh shit. um, she's wobbling and falling, and she's literally like moving as a baby would, not in any pretend like theatrical. I'm going to try to be a baby, but she's literally baby, and I'm observing her, and she's literally that, like here she is trying to put words to what is actually quite real, and this follows a whole experience of this in that state. Okay, so we're not talking about Carolyn. We're talking about every single person over the years, like beyond inner dance, but also within inner dance. Because for me, this happened again and again and again. And I would observe people in the room either worrying or wanting to take care of someone, and it's really good to take care. It's really just sometimes the care is pretty much coming from worry. Okay, let's try to bring her back. And the longer you allow someone to stay there, there is a certain amount of benefit, and there's some amazing stuff that could happen. So, okay, let's go back sorry, let's go back here. This is, for me, the first time I was taking notice that something deep was happening in Carolyn. And yeah, she was using this playlist, and there were certain things that she was describing happening in her brain. So we stayed with that. And here, I guess, I'm not sure if this was this is probably in Finland. And I think this was it's okay to be wrong. This is in Turkey. So I would invite you to watch her blog. And here, I guess the thing to look at, and we'll keep going back to this, and we'll ask her to share. We can ask her questions. We can ask ourselves questions. What does it mean to become time itself? Like they're words, they're concepts, but I would love to go into substantive understanding of what it means to become time, not just to like stretch time or travel to time, but to become time. Because these are stages. Like in many inner dances, people don't become time, they become, whoops, wait, why is that up there? They become space. So I have been speaking about stages where from baby we are space becoming time, and then when we grow up we become space. But then when we go into that's us going into the inner dance, like we remember ourselves as space, but after we become that space baby, then we are space becoming time. All right. So it's either we're becoming time of space or we're becoming space of time, and then on and on and on. You might go back and forth. I think the challenge here is to become space and time. So I think this would answer the question, like, what now? Okay, so let's say I became that, became the black hole. Um, the word integration would come up again and again for doctors, clinical psychologists, for therapists, for healers, for space holders, like, or pilgrims. What does it mean to integrate? Right? What does it mean to become whole? Coming from the black into the white and into the whole rainbow. What now? Like, what of this? What does it do? This whole in-depth thing that sometimes can feel irresponsible or weird or super duper strange. Because when she was going through these stages, it would have been easy, let's say, if it was happening to just someone you don't know, and this is happening in a workshop, it would be easy to judge, like, okay, this is really weird. And this would not have preempted the actual eventuality that, let's say, someone like this would end up, let's say, this is the first article written in a scientific journal that is about inner dance. And if you're interested in that, then just ask one of the people in your, who's holding the regional space for a copy. Like Carolyn, out of these experiences, ended up publishing the first article to come out in a science journal, which is like amazing unto itself. And in Europe, she probably is the first one to bring inner dance formally to the jail system. She's bringing it to schools. Just speaking about jails, like she just got an invitation to bring it to the women's prison after this amazing work she's doing with the guys, the men's prison. And the work she's doing with schools are quite formal, where it's really in system, where she's getting a salary for bringing it into the education system of the UK. And with Lisa, she's about to do an amazing project in the US where she's bringing inner dance as well as a team into the prison system in America. So I think that would be interesting, that what starts out in the most weird, irresponsible, like nothingness, baby state, something grows. And for me, that is worth studying. I picked up a few things as well that's coming from her sleep processes. And I think this would be important in defining how a playlist is curated, like to use her words, particularly in terms of what is the black hole in terms of a brain wave or brain state. Now, I want to state that for me, I think this might be one of the most important calls we are going to have in our 12-month period of studying together as a global community. In our global study group, I would say this orange call would be a self-defining moment. So thank you for being here. We are going to come into it, like the actual thing that we are heading towards. Because normally when we look at that, we are like not heading there. We're trying to skip it, bypass to avoid it. And the question is, what are we really looking for? What are we desiring? It's actually what we may not want, because when you get there, you may not want it. Are you sure you want to get there? Are you sure you really want to see it? Because if it's given to you, you would have to take responsibility. And Another word for the void is this. It's an actual entity or instance. So what we're avoiding is basically what we are heading towards at the end of it all. It's the greatest desire, what we're also avoiding, what Sigmund Freud calls the death drive. It's the greatest bliss, basically. So if you can have that whilst you're here without having to die, what does it mean to die without having to die? Then we wouldn't avoid it. So if you understood it, we wouldn't avoid it. So we would talk about what is the void. And it might be like a literal thing. It might be a figurative thing. Like for many people who have experienced the black hole, and it is confusing to have that W there. So if you were talking about a space in the universe, some people, and Gra is coming to this call, I think she wanted to share certain experiences where for her the black hole is not just a part of the universe. It's literally a dimension that we visit. Okay, it's not just something really, really big out there. It's also something in here and in the experience. Yeah, it's there. So bringing up Carolyn, like doing all these amazing things, I think when people first go into these spaces, it could be quite intense. So I would say Carolyn, like many, are still in the black hole, but they don't have to experience it as like becoming this cosmic baby that couldn't walk or talk or even stand up, you know, it's just pure baby. When you then integrate the black hole in many ways can be translated to many things. And like, I don't want to put in the words yet because then there would be many, and I'd rather do that one at a time. Like what are the, okay, what are ways? Like I want to bring up Jean Gebster's work. I don't know if you've heard of Jean Gebster. He's a philosopher and then just a deep thinker. And what something he's famous for, I don't know if you follow Ken Wilber's work. In Ken Wilber's integral theory, Gebster is known for the 5 structures of consciousness. There would be the archaic, and then there would be the magical, and then we would have the mythical, and the mental, and the integral. So this might come from age, depending on how old one is, and it can come through evolution. It could be synonymous with the early humans into where the humans are at. So what I find interesting here is, sorry, let's go back to orange. So archaic, and then what was next? Like the mythical. There was the, no, sorry, it's the magical, magic structures. Magic, there's a mental, and then there's the integral. In Ken Wilber's work, integral theory, this is where we want to be. But what I think is interesting in the inner dance, to coin a term or a phrase by Terence McKenna, he has this terminology called archaic revival. So in the 1960s, 1970s, when people were going into psychedelic drugs, shamanism, the drum circle, it feels somehow that to find our sense of integration, there's an aspect of us that needs to go back to all these. So depending on what your inner dance is, could be the archaic, the magical, or the mythical. So reviewing in phenomenological research documentation, such as Carolyn's experiences, somehow we need to go back in order to go forward. the orange value statement, or the principle in the orange that we had laid out, is regression is progression. And to truly understand this, we would have to wait until we get to the blue calls, where we bring up structuralism, where orange meets blue. That's when we would start looking at the progression part. But whilst we're in orange, we would honor and hold a space for the going back. Okay. Oops. Like, what does it mean to go back? To go back to the beginning, to go back to the source. Like, what is the point, and what is there, and how are we going back there? So this is no small feat. To try to understand what it really means to go back, it would mean going back into the whole timeline to actually review the, let's say, if we were talking about the universe, to go back to the Big Bang, then we're talking about 13 billion years ago up until the present. Let's go review that. Good luck, right? Or is it the Earth? That's a mere 4 billion years old. Or is it the early human? That's a mere, depending on what you define as human, it could be millions or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. So the inner dance is very much a regression journey. It's like a lot of inner dances would keep going back to the beginning states. So what we would look for is a meta understanding of regression. So we don't need 13 billion years to remember. Like, we can take like this hour or hour and a half or so. So going into Carolyn's experiences, what I would pick up here that would be studyable, at least, all right? Like at least, especially here, like losing control, losing aspects of the body. Okay, like sorry, where's my pen? I wobble and fall onto my side. My first word is a giggle, and who needs words? So there's this common experiences of losing the ability to speak. I, I didn't pick up on, she has a whole bunch of writings where it's pretty much that. So going back here, in terms of regression, studying this from a brain process, regression in inner dance is the ability to go into the pre-linguistic, the time before language, or the even pre-motoric states. And we have studied the brain enough together to understand that the linguistic aspects of the brain are also motoric in nature. Like there would be overlaps in the parts of the brain that manages language and the movements of the body. They develop together alongside the music parts of the brain. So more or less, we are able to let go or even rewire, because this obviously is very inner dancey, the motoric, the locomotor, the dancing part, the movement part. The language part isn't always as easy to see. You know, when people study Kundalini and energy process, language studies don't come up. In inner dance, it's something we have been looking at for a long time, because of all the experiences that have been observed since the beginning, where people stop comprehending or producing language for days, hours, or weeks, or even months. It has been observed. So there is the archaic in that sense, okay? And the description of the archaic is quite beautiful. It's the structure where there is a lack of differentiation and a state of oneness with the whole. The infant lives in the unitive state, which is in the inner dance stages, the 11th stage of transformation. And we are one, not just with the the earth mother, the human mother, but the great mother, which is archetypal. And so the magic follows, which is a way in which the child tries to mediate the state of oneness with what would be the world around it. So mythical would be um, further shifting into the world of the imaginary that came from the world of the real. Okay, so we'll go deeper into these later on. For now, let's not get lost. Let's go back to the black hole. All right, so what is the black hole? How do we represent that in the inner dance process? I want to share firstly like a book. This I might have shared before. It came to me a long time ago. My sister had it in her library. I saw it. This is before I lived in the island. And when I lived in the island, when my mom found me, she was carrying this book. My sister had it sent to me. My sister, not knowing anything that had happened to me, not knowing my connections with the Mexican stranger who I situated as a man named John, who is also Juan. And this book is about Don Juan. So there were many connections there. I had changed my name to Juan. I was called Juan in the island because of certain biblical, shamanic, mythical, magical elements that were converging in my space. So I got this book. I had just emerged from my weird state of becoming the universe and coming back to the human. So my mom gave this to me. So I'm like, your sister wanted you to have this. So I didn't know why. So of course I would read it, where everything is happening for a reason. The book was quite amazing because let me see. What were the amazing things here? Like my body was making these electrical noises. Make this smaller, right? and my joints were cracking all over my body, and it was electricity. And so I want to speak about electricity today. And for some of you, you might be experiencing electricity in your body. You can share this later on during this call. Like it could be in your wrists, your shoulders, your neck. One of the most common would be somewhere around the foot. There are two areas in the foot that's quite common, but facilitators of inner dance, they would experiencing this. So there's something about going back to the Mexican shamans that did have this tradition. And I discovered several shamanic traditions in the Philippines, for example, where there's a whole ritual to do with the electricity that starts to happen in the body. So that's one of the reasons why I really stayed with this book. But there's an explanation here as to why people enter the heightened awareness, the heightened state of awareness. It's like it read, state of heightened awareness. And the explanation here in this book, according to the ancient Naguals, thousands of years ago in South America, when there is a temporary or momentary halt of the system of interpretation, then the energy just flows. Okay, so whatever you call that, what is the system of interpretation? You might call it like thinking or just like mind stuff, and so on and so forth. So in the inner dance model, were you to hold this inside your own system, or you were to facilitate or to teach this to others, that's where this representation comes in. So I would love to look at this today, the relationality between magnetism and electricity. And this is somehow important, primarily as magnetism is relatable to the black hole. Okay, magnetism is to do with the black hole. And magnetism in representation falls in the inner dance process until such time that it will rise up again at one point, and then electricity rises. So there could be different representations for magnetism in this way. Like in the past, we would perceive magnetism as more or less like beta consciousness. Like if people are thinking, then we would try to let go of that, so that there would be a non-thinking state here, and electricity would rise up there. In a sense, that could be perceived as awe. What is awe? You know, like what does it mean to be in awe? I pulled out, I don't know if it's here. Yeah, I pulled out like a video of my son having just been born, like in water birth. So for me, that's like an experience I can share from a personal space. It's not coming from a workshop as to all, you know, like if you've ever experienced an actual birth, especially your child, then it's very hard not to be in awe. Like, how do I define awe? It's like a transcendence, like something much bigger than you is happening. If I was to think about the opposite of awe, it would be something like it's like a me as opposed to a we, or maybe it could be an AI, or this is like how an individual would see it. But like when the collective sees it from the personal, it's like, wow, this is everything. So awe would be infinite, let's say infinite electricity, and magnetism would go low, right? And in that space, people might describe that as the experience where there is no time. Okay, there's no time, all right? Like in the last call, we covered the Ash audio where she went into a space where there's no time, all right? For me, that's deep, but I feel that that's really just one representation. There could be other ways of perceiving black holes. So if we were to perceive light, right, as the electromagnetic wave that it is magnetism and electricity turning into each other, then there must be other states. Like, what is a state of consciousness? When I think of wake or dream or sleep, and sleep is that which mediates wake and sleep. Sorry, dream is what mediates wake and sleep. For me, when I think of death and life, death isn't really just a space you go to. Death is a state of consciousness. Could you think about that? Like when you die, what if that was a state of consciousness? Like would your state of consciousness go away? Would it stop? What if it didn't? What if you were still there? And even more so, it would be much, much greater than when you were here. The definition of wake is to be conscious, but would there be a state of consciousness called sleep or dream? And if that was such, would it be less? You know, what if sleep was actually much, much more than wake? As we are experiencing different states in inner dance, there would be wake, like inner dance is closer to wake and inner dance is closer to sleep. And those would be the, like to go into Carolyn sharing, it's like I'm waking up and there's no recall. There's no recall. Oops. There's no recall, and it's very hard to name it would be more here, like sometimes there are dreams, but mostly it's in the void. She doesn't remember anything. And I'm really just using this as a correlate to all those inner dances or kundalini, something that people are having where they don't remember anything. There's just this impression that we're falling into N3 deep sleep, right? And if we do experience something there, it wouldn't be personal memories. It'd be shapes, colors, energies, right? So for me, that is the consciousness of sleep as opposed to wake. Like for me, wake has to do with conscious experiences. If you were to experience the unconscious conscious, then you would experience nothing, but it would feel like nothing was not nothing. It could feel like everything is in the nothing, and that's something we're not used to. So for me, what I am describing is here. It would be here. Okay, let's make some space. What would we call this area here? It would be infinite magnetism, and then electricity would be as a vibration anyway, like maybe lowered, whatever you want to represent that as. It could be gamma, it could be beta, or low beta. It could be super duper high gamma then, or high oscillating frequencies, which would liken to delta. So here then, magnetism, we're talking about magnetism more because magnetism and gravity has more to do with the black hole, which is our topic. Instead of beta being represented here, it could actually be delta instead. Like, what do I mean by that? What about those inner dances, either yours or participants that you're holding? It's too long. Let's just say inner dance. Inner dance sessions. So people's feedback was, I don't know what happened, but I felt heavy. I felt heavy, like really heavy. What would be the explanation to that? Now, there's a new set of studies, very, very interesting, regarding sound, in particular, like particles of sound. And what you would call the particle of sound is a phonon, as opposed to the particle of light. Some of you probably know what a particle of light is. It's called a photon. So they recently found out that sound also has particle properties, not just wave properties, and it's called a phonon. And a phonon has both magnetic properties and thermal properties. Thermal being temperature, being hot or cold. I'm pretty sure we brought up this factoid in a previous Zoom call, but it's worth bringing it up again just to be reminded and then to map this out further. So sound, manipulating sound would manipulate magnetism. And magnetism has to do with time. If you were to study the black hole is that which holds infinite time. And it is able to hold infinite time because there's infinite magnetism. And black hole is extremely heavy, that if you were to approach the event horizon of a black hole, you would not be able to get away. You would get pulled in. That is what a black hole is. It's the most magnetic part of the universe. And when you watch these movies, such as Interstellar or Inception, representation there would be infinite memories, infinite experiences. Wait, it's supposed to copy my handwriting when I press infinite memories, infinite incarnations. It's like the loops of all moments, the groundhog seconds of all moments. I hope you know what I mean about Groundhog Day. It's like experiencing the same day over and over again. But what if it was all the days happening all at once, again and again? That's what would happen if you enter the black hole. That's what it means to enter different dimensionalities. So for me, then this would probably be the black hole. Like, this is the black hole. I would say this is the black hole. There would be states of consciousness, and I feel there would be different ways of experiencing this. It could either be, I haven't tried this, I don't know if it's possible, but let's say if somehow, wait, I need you to go away. I can't access the thing that I'm needing to access. It's kind of covering it. No, there's this button at the back. I was trying to invert it, like instead of this model moving from here to here, if it was the other way around, if it was moving from here to here, it could be that you begin like let's say here, and then you move to here, and then what about that space in between where electricity and magnetism balance each other in homeostasis? What would be the difference then? So this is just to offer different types of inner dances. Like I brought up this website as an example. Let's say Jimmy went into the trance, and then he went into the womb of his mom, and then went forward in time. I hope you're looking at what I'm trying to write on. I can't write on a website using my pen. But down here, Jackie didn't experience the womb. She experienced the whole universe. Linear time expresses a single viewpoint, as if it is possible to take in the expanded perspective of all that is. So there could be different ways of drawing this out. States of consciousness, say the becoming time of space, or the becoming space of time. There would be these, right, there's this cool thing here in this app where I can just draw this and then make that, yeah. We could either call this the emergent experience or the convergent. No, yeah, anyway, it could be the other way around. It depends on how it's explained. It would be this thing at the bottom of the pyramid that holds more information, and then the point. Sorry, let's put emergent down here. No, don't follow. Emergent. Emergent is to suddenly appear, where all that was hidden, that was happening all at once, suddenly becomes visible to the mind, to the eyes, to the ear, audible to the ears. Convergent would be all of these things that are happening here suddenly just becomes like a one thing. So I don't know, this could be like a word, it could be a concept, a place, a point, and you could see the structure surrounding or supporting what that thing is. Could be like the concept of baby or old person, could be anything. In the last call, we spoke about how when you study the way the brain holds information, at the bottom of the pyramid, there might be like so much information packed into memory. And one of the reasons why people would maybe want to go into something like inner dance, it doesn't matter what the pyramid looks like. It could be like a upside down or right side up. It takes a lot of energy to maintain the connections, whether it be linguistic, psychological, anthropological, even neurological, like bits of information, what you might call subordinate categories as opposed to the superordinate categories. Like we were in the last call talking about the loop. Like, why do people start looping around like basic terms like energy, like everything's energy? In the spiritual awakening, you probably have these convergent terms, like these specific words where like all of this information down here starts to conjoin into simple words like here. For me, there were specific numbers and words that started to explain my whole life and the story of the whole universe, which was purely synchronic. There was synchrony there, which was quite amazing. But in terms of the becoming space of time, when people say you're being spacey, there is a kind of loopy. People start looping. Okay, you probably heard this before, and you probably know what it means. What does it mean? That I'm starting to loop. I'm starting to not be able to say too many words, but I just keep repeating the same words, trying to explain this experience, but now I'm looping, and I can't explain it in subordinate terms. So breaking out of the loop means finding one's language once again that is emergent in nature, but the loopiness is very convergent. And there are unique synchronicities that would happen in each and every soul or every person. Um, One way of mapping this out would also be, okay, let's go back to the system of interpretation that was mentioned in the book by Carlos Castaneda, System of Interpretation. So this could be a knowledge or it could be an experience. And when we do study the nature of experiences, there's this ongoing debate in the philosophy of experience where experiences could either have conceptual content or it could be purely sensory in nature, so that what you hear and see, you're making things up inside you, but it actually doesn't mean anything outside in the world. They're purely just sense data. Sense datum is what the theory is called. And then you make up the concept inside you depending on what your culture is, what languages you speak, and so on and so forth. So everything is just a system of interpretation. So the ongoing debate there is that system inside or outside? Is it made up by nature or the government or schools, or is it you within you making things up? Another way of understanding systems of interpretation based on these models would be there is the hyper-priming model. And this is more the inner dance state where there's like a mandalic way information spreads out from each concept that you hear. Suddenly there's an explosion of how the information is associated, as opposed to the direct priming, hyper priming or direct priming experience where there's still a linearity where one thing follows another. It's still quite causal or deterministic. So the black hole might be something like this, that we're becoming aware more and more of this. And I just bring up these triangles just to situate that somehow we are integrating by getting to hold these two triangles at the same time, to be able to emerge and converge simultaneously is what integration is about. I mean, this is an important symbol right now with what's happening in the Middle East. Maybe it's not really just the flag of Israel. Like something needs to balance out, that is the masculine, feminine, or fire, water, which speaks about how do you hold information? Is it going to be like everything all at once? And then how do you hold not just the nothing, but the everything at the same time? There would need to be more and more awareness of what's happening in the we'll take this up in the blue. Like it's probably one of the most important essays that explains space and time through coding context. Like, don't get confused, don't get overwhelmed. These we would bring up in a further call. So I think these are necessary to go deeper into the black hole. Right, I'm just looking at my notes, and this one is not moving. Wait, is that the last slide? No, it shouldn't be. Okay. All right. So where does this take us? Like, okay, you've got this, and we've got this. This could be practical eventually, where we are learning to curate the playlists so that we know where we are taking people. For now, we are demystifying the black hole, coming into the possibility where the black hole isn't just in outer space, but also in inner space. I think alongside this, just to map out the dream, the orange topic that we need to complete, because we are closing the 9 months or 12 months, depending how you look at it, in this trimester. Dream theory is a very important topic to bring up. Like, we would like you to step away from this coursework with some theory of what is that? That is a space, that is a dimension, that is a process. It's a change, it's a transition, it's a mediation. Like, what is your theory of dream? Right? Like, how do you perceive dream? What is it? How do you perceive it? So there are only two basic theories of dream that we bring up. One is the traditional. There are more, probably more, but there are two polar ones in inner dance that we would study in relation to especially the topic that's at hand. One is called the received view of dream, and then the other is the cassette theory of dream. The cassette theory of dream. Okay, so the received view is this, and the explanation is quite phenomenological, actually. The received view theory is that dreams are still experiences. Experiences that you're having at night when you go to sleep, so that when you wake up, then you remember what had happened, like that they are happening they happened in the past, like in the dream, and it was linear, and there's still very much like a story in it. There's a story to unravel, and so to take up something that Carolyn did right, she is moving from one to the other, like in the past, like she would have the story. Okay, she was experiencing lucid dreaming. She was setting intentions, and she was very often still able to write down actual experiences. And then as she went deeper and deeper into the weirder playlist systems of inner dance, even the ones she was constructing on her own, then she was moving more and more into the other state of dream, and that's closer to the cassette theory. So the cassette theory was given to us by the philosopher, maybe you know him, named Daniel Dennett. Very, very interesting fellow. Much to say about the theory of evolution. But he did question whether dreams are experiences. And the way he would explain the dream is this: that when we go to sleep, okay, I'm going to try to draw this. I haven't drawn this before. So let's say what I'm trying to draw is like a library. So I would probably change the name. I'd call it the library theory of dream. cassette doesn't do it for me so much. So let's say these are books, these are cassette tapes, these are um, whatever, CDs, and this is your case. When you go to bed, then you're not really this narratology. You're not just this thing happening one at a time. That's called the displacement theory of dream, or the condensation of dream is still a story. It could be an image, but it's more holistic, where it's not so many elements. It could be just one big element, but it's still story-like. Now, in terms of the cassette theory, the experience is quite different. It would be pretty much, this is your sleep consciousness. It doesn't matter if it's N1 or N2 or N3 or REM state. When you go to sleep, there is no story. What there is, so let's say there is a story, but the story is like all the stories. Story one, story two. Let's say I don't want to write story again and again. So there are all of these stories coexisting with each other all at the same time. Okay, so now I need the space. And what he says, what he theorizes, like Daniel Dennett theorizes, is when you wake up. So dream is what mediates, right? So let's say you're sleeping, you're experiencing sleep consciousness, which is the unconscious, but it's still a state of consciousness, and you're about to move to wake. So before you wake up, you decide to take something from here. Let's say take this one in particular. Say, I want to grab that one on my way out. So on your way out, you grab that one, and then you wake up, and then you kind of remember the thing that you grabbed at the last minute. So suddenly then you're awake, and there, like, you do wake up sometimes, and then there's like a one story, but there could be like 2 or 3 stories that you are able to remember. So the dream is really just a residue. That could be a word. It's a residue. It's like a glimpse. Let's say there was a huge room, and then you on your way out, you're needing to forget. Like here in sleep, let's say you are God and Goddess, you are the universe, you're the black hole, and here you have to become a person again. So on your way out, you grab a piece, and then like so what would you rather? Would you rather believe in the received view, which is super depressing if you think about it, because when you're sleeping, why would you still be stuck in your story? Why would you still be living in time? I do believe that there is a whole bunch of received view offerings, primarily because in past millennia, we were still pretty much in the third dimension. But as we are moving into new brain states, the hypersphere consciousness, the tesseract, the fourth dimensional space, maybe we are accessing the cassette theory or the library mind much, much more than just, this is really just like one, how do you draw this? This is really just one of these, you're just, you're just like taking one, like when you go to sleep, is it really just one book? Was it just one story that you try so hard to think about and remember? This could change, like I would say, everything, depending on the paradigm. Like if you believe that you are this, you wouldn't be interested in just the thing in itself. So here's the differentiation between, let's say this, Wake might be more interested in the content. Now, if sleep was the library, then that would be called code. And the meeting space between code and content is context. Dream The capacity to dream brings about context. The capacity to be everything is the code. It's the meta cognitive, the metalingual. And if you get stuck here, you'd be interested in what does the dream mean? If you are in code, you'd be pretty much like, how am I even dreaming at all? How am I making everything up? How am I the creative life force energy of the universe? Then the content doesn't matter as much as the medium itself, the the container, you know, the impersonal, because I can change the personal. So how could this be helpful? It's to understand that you don't need to sleep in order to dream. And if you can dream whilst awake, what sort of dream would you be having? Would you be interested in this? And maybe some people aren't even just dreaming of that. Maybe it's just a page, or maybe it's just a sentence or a word or a letter in the page. Or are you building this much capacity with the kind of super brain that you are accessing in your inner dance, right? Like, so the question here is what dimension? What dimension? To go a little bit into the blue early, we'll go deeper into this later on. This is the work of Ferdinando de Saussure, who was the father of linguistics in some ways, or the father of semiotics. There is a synchronic function of language and the mind, and then there's a diachronic function. So to explain the difference, synchronic function doesn't require history in order to understand whatever aspect of the story. You know, it's like, let's say I met you, I don't know anything about your story, but I resonate with you. It's like sometimes you might have that feeling, I resonate, I can vibe with this person. I don't know anything about this person. I don't know anything about their story, but it's like I know you. I don't know your story. I don't know your history. I haven't gotten the time to get to know you, but I know there's something there. There's like a download. There's the diachronic function is not that. It's to understand something requires a narratology. It requires a storytelling. It requires a linear moment by moment construct. Okay, so once again, it's still time and space. So depending on the dimension that you choose to either live in or to hold, I think you need a model for the universe. Like what is the point for you? Like what is your center, your middle? What is your model of the universe? Like the model of the earth is the geocentric model. The model of the sun is the heliocentric model. So the current model that we're looking for is the omnicentric universe model, where everything is the sun, everything is a solar system, whether it be a word, a place, a person, everything is the middle. That's an omnicentrism. So dimensionally speaking, a lot of content right now is, I would say it's still living in flat earth. Like if you're really taking things literally, I don't know if you know about the flat earth conspiracy theory, but flat earth is an ancient theory that the earth was not round. And then we realized that the earth is spherical. So the question is, what would the world look like if we moved into the fourth dimension or the fifth? Okay, this is like 2D, this is 3D. What would the fourth dimension look like? So for those who tried out the playlist called Hypersphere Unravel, I'm going to explain it to you. So let's say you had a cube, and inside the cube you had like a cube. Let's say that's a cube. And then what if there is a cube that contained the cube? This is what you would call a, there's such a thing called a hypercube. This is called a hypersphere. And the hypersphere is the fourth dimension unraveled, all right? So there are people who are living in flat earth. And I do believe that the flat earth conspiracy theorists are regressing for one reason or another. These are the people who usually vote for someone like Donald Trump, the conspiracy theorists. And there's something there. There is a reason for wanting to go back to the 2D or maybe even the 1D. And that's probably why we brought this up. We regress even as we progress. Now, what is this? If we experience the fourth dimension, this is called the wormhole. And that is what allows us to traverse the white and the black hole. All right. So this would answer the question, what is inner dance anyway? Like, what is that space that could bring us anywhere around Earth, around space, or around person? So remember, like what we're wondering about is what dimension do we go to? The answer to that is all of them, any of them. Just not none of them. You always need to be in some kind of dimension. So inner dance is not a dimension, it's an interdimension. It's the space in between dimensions. What it does is it gives you the ability to travel across dimensions. So it would be more that space in between. So inner dance is kind of a time machine and a spaceship. My inner dance mind would often just play with that and call it like a a space machine or a time ship or something. It's a space-time ship machine. And inner dance is an interdimension with more emphasis on the inter. There's something to learn in all of the dimensions, and for us to be able to travel through all these synchronically, to enjoy the diachronic function, it is proper to learn to return to time once again, okay? Because one of the problems with going into the inner dance loopy state is that it's very hard to do one thing at a time. You have to actually teach yourself once again, from cosmic baby to back in time. So it's okay to go back to history. And what I had to train myself, in fact, was to read history books in order to re-experience the history of the world. It's not anymore the history of the earth. It's actually the history of history itself. And some people might want to call it the herstory, which is what's coming. And I do hope she wins. We're coming into this is to say history changes. There is a history of history. So depending on where you're looking from, there will be a totally different perspective. And you're practicing what it means to see things from all these different perspectives, which is the ultimate empathic space, like to be able to understand like everything, everyone in accordance to, okay, how are they seeing it? And maybe I can see it in this way, but how are they seeing it? So this is what you're achieving. The wormhole allows you to travel through different spaces. Okay, so I think that's this could be enough to start an interesting conversation. Let me get rid of the podcast. Set up my screen, and then yeah, my video is there. Okay, so yeah. Let's start with Caroline. Be lovely to hear about your cosmic baby. What was it like to have been like a weird blob on the floor several times? And then I'm interested in you talking to us about growing up, not just within those moments, but later on, getting to handle all those intensities to the point where And I think a point that I wanted to make was this is why we actually facilitate the emergent and the convergent start to piggyback onto each other or do these reversals where like you're able to hold the black hole, but more as information, right? It used to be energy, but suddenly these are all aspects of the mind and magnetism. So that when you're able to explore the black hole in this way, it just becomes wisdom that you're able to draw from this oceanic eternal pool of all the experiences out there now in here. All right, so sorry for that. So if you could share with us, thank you.
Okay, so we're in Finland and I'm lying on the floor and no one's come near me in this inner dance, and there's a narrative inside me saying, I can't believe no one's touching me. I'm dying all alone and nobody knows. And a question inside me arises, can you die with joy in your heart? And with an immediate yes. And as soon as I say yes, an energy explodes through my body and two hands come to my head and two hands come to my feet. And a song about joy comes on. And it feels there's a reversal taking place. I'm traveling through a wormhole, a birth canal, from darkness to the sun god, to darkness again. And I'm birthed back onto the mat. And everybody finishes. I'm aware and I'm not aware at the same time. I hear people gathering themselves together, they're chatting, and I am a blob on the floor. I have not only no impulse for movement, there is no movement available to me. And all I can be is formless. And I trust the formlessness. And I kind of just sleep. I'm resting. There's so much energy has exchanged itself. And at some point I realized that there's some movement available in my mouth. And so I begin to like almost looking for the bottle or the breast. And then some movement begins to come to my head and neck. And then I have to sleep again. And for the next couple of hours, I go through these very minor motor developmental stages, from learning how to rotate my neck, to finding a way to flip onto my belly, to then leaning up into the cobra, which just takes another hour of rest to recover. And I'm full of wonder and awe. There's no separation between the world and myself. I don't know that I have a physical body, even though I'm trying to discover it. And this takes hours and hours to come back. And there's absolutely no rush. It has its own timing. And then I honor that timing and there's no capacity to push through it anyway. And everybody's so graceful and gracious with me, sort of holding that space for me to gently come back into a place where I can start to think in a linear fashion. It's like going through my toddler years quite swiftly. The first few hours, it's really slow. And then things start to come back together and I'm able to sit up and realize I need to shower and I need to eat and be around people, and I still can't speak, and my brain is unified. It's one. There's no, I imagine if you could look at my brain, there's no fissures, it's just no creases whatsoever. And this experience lasts for months. But after the training, that was the very last day, babies start to talk to me in different places. I get to go in the cockpit in the plane on the way home like babies do. And a little baby called Freya, she's 4 months old, takes my wrist and holds me as we fly back to Scotland. And because I'm scared of flying, and she must have known that. So I'm having these like conversations with these non-verbal conversations with babies everywhere where they recognize me as the same. We're in this same wavelength. And I'm still not quite sure I'm fully back. There's moments of aphasia, there's different processing. My brain functions entirely differently now. But it was the beginning of many journeys into the black hole. And I actually wrote that a year ago in Turkey, inner dance dies me and facilitating brings me back to life. And there's something about the more I inner dance, the deeper into that dimensionality I can go. And when I come back rich with information, the process of integration is actually how the space holds me to hold the space. So opportunities to facilitate increase, and without me pushing or trying to create opportunities, they're coming to me. And for me, I feel that the prison work is a huge part of my integration process. That, yeah, it's bringing, there's something about bringing the consciousness, becoming the consciousness and living it. And it's a way of being. So for many people, I imagine it'll be true for you as well, are going more and more into that space during an inner dance where they come back and they go, I don't have any recollection. I just feel like something happened. And for me, I always describe it as going into the black hole, that we're going beyond, crossing the event horizon into a dimensionality where there's no light and there's no time. And perhaps that's why there's no image making. There's nothing to recall because there's no light. You can't, there's nothing to see really. It's texture based, it's pure consciousness. And so integration takes its own time. And I have this sense of, the white hole is the black hole inverting itself.
Let me put in the screen the image that you put out in your blog as you speak, if that's it.
Yeah, my how text so I think I'm echoing. Am I echoing? Yeah.
Let me fix it. I think it's it's not sharing the sound so that it's not like okay, let's try.
Try again. Oh, that sounds better.
Mm.
Yeah, so I was trying to, oh, I think it's happening.
Wait, just a moment. Let me mute myself first.
Okay. Yeah, that's better. So I was reading a science magazine and they were exploring the black hole going into the white hole. And I had this resonance, I'm not scientific. I've not learned how to think that way yet, but there's something about this that really resonates with me, with the processes that I'm experiencing and other people are sharing with me, that there's something of a crossing over into a void, into a dimension where that disintegration takes place, where that separation into unity, that it doesn't require light, it doesn't require time. It's pure consciousness, and it's absolutely magnetic. I love how you say that. And for me, it's a very delta space. It's an inpulling, pulls us in and holds us in deep. We become deep time, for sure we do. And then at some point, maybe during the inner dance, or maybe months or years afterwards, there's a crossing back out of the black hole becomes the white hole, and the white hole pushes everything back out. So it's like a birth that births itself. I'm not sure if anyone's resonating with this, but there's the pulling in to be birthed back out again. And I'm very curious about that. And I'm very curious about other people's experiences of that, and how we can create a common enough language to be able to answer those questions when people are saying, what happened? I don't remember what happened. I just know something did. And yeah, for me at the moment, it's the black hole, and I'm spending more and more time there. It's happening in my waking days. It's happening during these calls. It's happening where I'm not asleep. And I'm not in the dream dimension either. There's a difference in sensation, but deeply held. And for me, one of the most potent black holes was in Turkey when we went to a sacred site, and you had your Delta speaker on, you were playing the flute. Italy had the Koshi bells, Fleur was singing, Andre had his guitar, and I kind of just found myself in the sort of crevice of these rocks. And all I remember at the beginning is I could hear paws tapping on the stones, and it felt like there was a nose nudging my leg, like a dog or a wolf. And then I don't know what happened. I came back sometime after the inner dance had ended, and I was jelly, complete jelly. And Fleur, I wrote it down, Fleur described me as being soft, and it's such a perfect word, utterly soft. It's almost like there are no bones. I have no density. Ironically, the density of this magnetic pull into the black hole absorbs my own magnetism and density, and then I'm just this softness. And it took quite some time to come back from that, and I had to drink pints of fresh orange, and I was just absolutely wiped out. And the host told us a story about the site, and he said that it was actually named after wolves, and that wolves used to, that's where they lived. And I had this moment, this understanding that, oh, okay, right. So in this black hole, in this wormhole of time, me today met the wolves of then. And I'm not sure if I met them in their time or they came and met me in mine, or there's something about the connectivity of this wormhole in this black hole dimensionality. But they definitely came to say hello and be curious about what I was up to on the rocks. Yeah. So these are just a couple of my very big inner dances, the big dreams. And
Wow.
I've had so
Okay.
many. I could go on and on, but I won't.
Yeah, I'm sure this is opening up provocative spaces in a lot of people. For me, the quintessence of the orange when we think of the orange as a chakra, people often would think about birthing, creation, even sexuality. But because the orange is the void, then it's also the space for destruction. In the blue, we would call it more of a deconstruction, which isn't really a negative. It's really just to be able to dissect all the parts in relationality with the whole. I've been through a lot of deaths and a couple of births in my deepest transcended spiritual experiences, like when I was really just the universe before I came back to humanity and start this work. And sometimes I would have this experience where, let's say, I would be talking to someone, and then like something would happen. It was, you know how it is when you, let me draw like it'd be interesting to think about this from the image, and I'm happy you brought that up. Yes, there's something I did want to see here. Oops, right back to orange. Okay, so you know how it is when you, let's say, hold a mirror in front of a mirror, and then let's say you have an image here, and then you have an image there, but the mirror would just keep, there would be all these images that would reflect infinitely in some recursive loop. So I've slipped into black hole energies in a normal space where suddenly I'm talking to someone, and then I would see all the variations of that particular day, or even just that 1 second where this person's wearing another shirt. There are all these circumstances like bound up, but then suddenly like untied, and then they're one on top of each other. So my view of the world just kept expanding and expanding and expanding. So how do I see it now? So the life review is so important to understand the life review process that happens with the synchronic activation of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system in the near death, where in the span of a second, you see your whole life flashing before your very eyes. And then the birth vision is the opposite. It's pretty much like you see all of the possibilities of you before you came here, before you entered the world and exited the mother's womb, which isn't just a human mother. So I don't think there is a difference between the life review and the birth vision when time doesn't exist anymore. When there is no time, you are always in your life review and you're always in your birth vision. The only way you can make sense of that is you are already dead. Somewhere in time, you're gone. you're done, and you haven't been born. You know, you're unborn. You're finished, and yet you're not yet started. All right, you're unborn. And so maybe you're like an energy field, like a simplified bubble, which should probably be more of a hyper sphere. All of these are moments, all of these are situations, people, and so on and so forth. And for whatever reason, you keep going back here. You keep going back to the say, okay, I want to go back to that point, or I want to go back to that point. So in any single moment, there is a coexistence of all of your days. You're still a baby, but you're already like oh, that looks like a face. You're already like a wise old person in your deathbed. You know, it's like 2001, A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick. So this might be a crazy thought, but this is how I see it. So when I bring this up, this what am I trying? This other theory of dream, the cassette theory. If you aren't applying this in your normal life, no, sorry, if you're not applying it in this space, but you move it over to this, if you're still able to hold the cassette theory as opposed to the received view, then you're not a victim. You know, whatever problem you might have, it be poverty or a divorce or this and that. It doesn't matter what you're experiencing because the other cassettes are there. You know, I can't think of anything more empowering that is also like super strange. It doesn't matter how much you're suffering. Somewhere in the library, you're experiencing something else, and maybe becoming more and more the library allows you to access that. And even if you don't, it doesn't matter because it's still coexistent. That for me is the black hole and the white hole. Like for me, these are the white and black, however you might want to define black or white. But you said something interesting and important as well, Carolyn, that reminds me. Okay, I wanted to go into awe. And awe does lead to wonder. Wonder is the beginning of philosophy. That's according to Aristotle. Like philosophy begins with wonder. Because when we're not wondering, then we already know what we think we know. I don't have to learn anything because I already know it. I'm judging. I'm already quite smart. I don't need to learn. So what is a child? A child lives in awe and wonder, and curiosity could lead to learning. If I am awestruck by this thing that's much bigger than me, then I get curious and I want to learn. And so the world is actually awful for a child and wonderful. And don't look at this word again in the same way. It says, that's so awful. Good. Yeah, it's great. But what's happened to the world? Why do people drop in so quickly to the black, white, rainbow hole? It has something to do with like these transitions aren't really just time and space. It has something to do with the sound in the image. So the spectacle to the critical thinker Guy Debord describes this why is it overall social phenomena where everything is reduced into a representation. I can't use my pen here. It, you know, an image fragments the whole space. Okay, I don't want to just go and read that. We're too image based. So if you know anything about Jacques Lacan, the psychoanalyst's model, the Borromean knot, which is the symbolic and the imaginary, and this is an orange topic as well, and the real, okay, the real, because we did take up Jean Gebser's work, then the real would be closer to the archaic, which is like oneness, the unitive state. And the imaginary would be more it could be the mental. I wouldn't call it the integral. So the symbolic would be the mythical space or the magical space. And wait, I'm trying to remember what am I talking about anyway. Guy Debord, yes. So, you know, when you watch a movie and you're awestruck, you could either be in awe in an imaginary space. And in today's world where social media especially is so image-based in an almost narcissistic basis, here people are so obsessed about how they want people to see them. One of the reasons why people are attracted to inner dance is because the archaic lives more in the sound. I mean, I don't know how this becomes practical to you, but there are neurological and psychological explanations to why and how we need to go back to the sound-based mentality rather than the reductive image-based reality, which is interested in the spectacle or the spectacular. And when you are taken over by the spectacle, the mind goes empty. The mind goes blank. And there is no critical thinking. That could be good in a Kundalini spiritual awakening sense, but in an integral sense, it doesn't go into the integrative aspect of the human. So there is a reason why we go back to the seemingly empty black hole space of oneness, because sound does hold an omnicentrism that would allow us to go back into the image without having to reduce reality into mere representations that are often shallow. And also to look back here, it's often misleading, enticing, deceptive, distracting, and superficial. This is where we're at in the industrial and post-industrial cultural postmodern world that's so enticed by the current state of media. So we're going to go deeper into media theory, so that one way of understanding, like this wave here, is we're going to be speaking about hot and cool mediums. Like interdimensionality is also multimedia. So that when we study this with greater science, studying what are the effects of sound as opposed to movement, touch, body position, and so on and so forth, bringing these together in a kind of synesthesia. And what I'm introducing to you is what we'll bring up in the yellow. We will study the science of the senses. How are you experiencing through sensory modalities, which is prior to conceptualization. Before concepts, you are experiencing things through the primal, the proto-manifestations of thought, which are pure sense. So we'll look at the difference between hot and cool media. And in inner dance is in some ways a cool medium, because cool mediums are multimodal, interdimensional, and it allows for interpretation to arise from inside. So thank you for mentioning this. Like if the image is more into spectacle, where is that? Sorry, the image is really into the spectacle, the imaginary, that which is not spectacular. It's inner dance. Inner dance is here. Inner dance brings us into the real, not just through the imaginary. A lot of people are interested in the symbolic. This is still mediating, needing religion, needing shamanism, needing ritual in order to mediate. But to go straight into the black hole is to not need mediation, to not need the priests, to not need the shaman or the healer, to go straight into the source. That is the deeper inner dance. And I do feel it is still possible to go into the imaginary inner dance, which is the need for the concrete, to make it a business model, to make inner dance like a, there is nothing wrong with the business model. It is also just as interested to understand it from the metaphorical and the essential level. So thank you for bringing that up. I thought that this would be helpful to map out in the orange space. Okay, so thank you, Carolyn. I would be interested to hear from others regarding your black hole experiences or questions or realizations as we're together. A lot of you have gone through this, I am sure. And we're conducting a phenomenological research here. It helps us to understand more and more like what is there. So if anyone would like to share something, we would be deeply honored. Okay, hey Jimmy.
Hi. Um, for me, it's yeah, it was you could say a special thing to the black hole, the energies, and for me, I think the third session I had with yeah Sophie, where I was laying down, was for me one of the most yeah deep going, where it was the first time that I, yeah, you could say it was in something like the black hole. I felt the energy in my body, which strengthened me in a bow. So at that time, I was standing in a bow on my heels and on my shoulders. And I felt energy coming out of my body. And I felt something in my hands, like something growing in my hands. At that moment, I felt an energy in between my hands, which was growing and growing and growing. And at a certain point, I could see the energy ball. So I saw a ball of like small lightnings and energy in my hands growing. And I had the ball in between my hands. And at that time, I didn't understand what was happening. And I think, yeah, with the call today, yeah, it's about being in that position, because everything where I was, it was in space, and I had, yeah, the energy in my hands. And the thing is, after that, I was reading about, yeah, um, yeah, Chinese medicine and things where a lot of Eastern ideas of medicine create something with moving their hands like slightly away from each other and making some small circular movements to create energy in between their hands. And then I thought, okay, that is that. But coming from that and moving into the, you could say, black hole, I was able to actually see the energy in between my hands. And that was, you could say, the crazy thing, which I can relate to the black hole. In the same session afterwards, the ball went away. It went in me. So the energy came in me. And then later on, the energy could come out like in a bubble. So it came out like in, yeah, some like blubby thing. And that blubby thing was me, because I could see, now I'm out of my body, and the bubble was in the room, and I could, as the bubble, go through the room and see, there are other energies. That's not, you could say, my energy. That's a positive energy. And in that same session, I could, from that bubble, also, you could see, feel where other persons lay. So I was able to make a kind of orientation, who was laying where and where the facilitator was going. So I could follow and know who was going where. And at the moment, then the facilitator was touching me. I knew a friend when she was coming, where she was in the room, because I was the bubble. It was, yeah, it was for me the deepest session I've been in. But now with today's call, it's, you could say, yeah, makes sense or something. Yeah.
Mm. Especially the last part needs to be honored and held. Like retrocausality belongs to the black hole. So supposedly time starts to slow down to almost stop. And then based on what Carolyn wrote, in the transition into the white hole, time actually starts to go backwards, so that what hasn't happened yet in some space already just is, and you can somehow feel that there's like a sense of deja vu, or like, am I creating this? I'm not sure what's causing what, but time goes backwards so that you somehow know what is happening, because somewhere it has already happened. So that for me is the effective orange. It's the ultimate effective orange. Like, it's such an amazing thing to think about. Okay, before we came here, we were the universe. So how are we fitting that into our bodies? So how you're describing it, it was there in front of you as a dissociated objective thing, and you could actually grow it, manipulate it, look at it with pure objectivity, just seeing it as what it is. Outer space is inner space. I cannot look at the stars without understanding that the stars are already also my molecules, my atoms, my quarks. Like, it's my whole body. But for that to be true, it's like everyone's body that we're looking at. Like, I don't see stars, I see our molecules. Like, it's all holographic somehow. So when we go there, it's becomes more evident. It would be interesting to know as well what playlist Sophie played. It could be Corpus Callosum, which she was using a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was, but yeah, it's already, yeah, I think now.
Yes, it was the Corpus Callosum.
So it's exactly the black hole thing that caused the thing in Carolyn as well. Probably around the same time, like a year and a half ago or last year.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, thank you. All right. Anyone else? And Sophie, if you wanted to say something about that experience, like what it was like to have been holding that, like you can share. But anyone else would like to offer something? So Val has raised her hand. Go ahead.
Well, Sophie, you were going to say something. I didn't want to interrupt since, no? Okay. Well, thank you for the space. So inspiring. And for me, I've had all these aha moments while being in this lecture and also reliving my own death. And I've come to realization that death was part of my upbringing. And I had been like actually claiming death for so many years of my life. And coming to Maya, when I felt in the most secure spot is where my death came. And for me, it wasn't imagining that I was a little girl. My death came in a physical way. Like literally, I went into an asthma attack that literally I couldn't breathe anymore. I did hit that panic attack. And then when I was feeling the death, I basically said, well, all right, I've been claiming this death all this time. What a beautiful place to die, here in Maya with the people I love. There was a night and the fire. And by then I was feeling that I was surrounded with the people, that were there. Actually, Diana is here, and Cristina and Gra, and many people that were holding the space. And it came so deep that my death not only came in that form of asthma attack, but literally in blood. So for me, there has nothing there. I can't match up this awakening process that I had there to combine the spiritual wave and the physical aspect of my body literally having, I'm quite impacted because I had a white outfit on and it was all, all red. And I couldn't understand when the fire just hit its peak and I opened my eyes and I saw the scene and then finally surrendered to that. And that, what has that done to me having claimed death all this time, and how I finally got to a point of being one with death. And death has come a couple of times more knocking on my door, but now I say, hello, I know who you are, you know, we're one, it's okay, no more fear. So for me to have the combination of the physical aspect, the spiritual, the energy, of course, I'm not tapping into that because I want other people to speak, has been absolutely amazing. And I'm so thankful for the land, for the teachings and the people that were there, and for what that has totally given me a fresh air of life. So thank you, Pai, also for your teachings through that and helping me through that.
I think at this point, Sophie should speak. She had a really crazy energy dance a week or a couple of weeks ago. And because when you were in Maya, you were asking me, have you had this experience where someone just bled nose-wise? And so I was trying to think back. I was sure I had it, but I didn't really remember a specific memory. But maybe this death process could be relatable even to kids. She had this experience in the asylum for like immigrants moving to like Europe, Belgium in particular. So if Sophie, maybe you could share about this because it might help Val to at least hear that
Yes.
this kind of thing happens.
Okay, I was just getting my ice cream, but okay, I will now. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago, Sandrine. Now, thanks to Sandrine, we have like a contract of 3 months inner dance at the asylum/refugee center in the town next to where we live. And when we held the first group process, everything went well. So we got a lot of confidence. And then the second group process, it was with small children. And suddenly, during the group process, one boy, 8, 9 years old, he started to bleed from his nose. And Sandrine was like making signs like, okay, he's bleeding. The caretakers were sitting on the bank. And I was thinking, okay, this bleeding is going to stop somehow. So Sandrine, she had to leave. And I was sitting with that boy. And he kept on bleeding. And everything was under the blood. His arms, his face, his mat where he was lying on, his blanket. And at the same time, he was stretched out. His eyes were wide open. He was staring, but there was like no life in it. And for like a little bit of a millisecond, I thought, okay, he's gone. We lost him. He's really dead. And so I went for my mobile phone. And I sat down again next to that boy, like pretending everything was well. And I sent a message to Pai, hoping that he was available to say, okay, I'm having here a situation. Now I'm laughing, but it was really, and now the kids are so well and they're asking again for it. But at that moment, it was very scary. And he answered something like, okay, it's important that the people around don't get panicked or something like that. And I said, no, we're all in trust. And but it was very difficult to hold the trust there. Really, it was really difficult because I didn't know how long it would take that boy would recover and how he would recover. And then suddenly there was life in him again. And like nothing happened. He took out his mobile phone, he started to TikTok, and he went away laughing. So yeah, that was really special. And we didn't know how the reaction would have been afterwards, or how the feedback would be. And Sandrine told me that the caretakers, we did that on Wednesday. We held the process on Wednesday, and I think around the weekend they said that they were asking again to have the same kind of processes. They really liked it, and it was not the only thing that happened in that session. There was another boy vomiting and another boy urinating. So yeah, there was it was quite a lot. So I don't know if you want me to say something else about that, but
maybe then the director of the asylum center was worried a little bit because I think one of the boys or children was saying there was like demonic possession. So we were worried at one point, how do we explain it? Until such time that we realized that most of the children actually were excited to do it again. I think what's the moral of this story is we're talking about these things that's usually seen in the most mystical, weird space, but somehow we're getting to understand it. You know, like one of the names that I would call my workshops is the introduction to the infinite. I mean, what the hell is that anyway? How do you get introduced to the infinite? But when you do get introduced to the infinite, she is getting her ice cream. Good, yum. Let me. When we get introduced to the infinite, we know it. It's like a friend, and to be able to hold this in a way that's not scary anymore, other people would feel your familiarity with the unfamiliar. Like, how much do you know the unknown? So whatever it is that happens, what people will hold on to is your trust. So I think there's something quite important about this, because if again and again, if you do your work well, these things are bound to happen. Like if people trust you, all sorts of things will go flying out of the body, would just jump out of the window. Or what would you do then? If someone goes into like a Carolyn cosmic baby organism on the floor that you can't like rouse back into normality, and it wasn't in a training or a retreat scenario, like how would you hold it? So arming you with the understanding of this on so many different layers, it's not really like a big deal. It's just inside of us. It could be really big, but it's also quite simple. And as well, to hear other people talking about this, like it was just an everyday thing. Like to hear Sophie talk about this in institution, not in a spiritual workshop, but in a space where there needs to be utmost responsibility. It's kind of governmental almost. It's already quite amazing that we're able to do it in this more respectable way, that the terminologies that we're using is easier for people to take in. But listening to you and listening to that boy, it's like Sophie used the noise app, so I just kept thinking of the nose app. All right. Anyone else would like to share interesting things around black holes?
Hi,
Gisli.
how are you guys?
Gisli is from Iceland, holding inner dance,
Yes,
Reykjavik.
that's right. It's super interesting. What I can reflect is sort of around the infinite. It's like I remember, like if you're able to let go and go into the abyss, or like the black hole, sort of like to this spiritual experience to evaporate, sort of, and to become nothing, takes quite courage to do that, or to go there, and to sort of die before you die, which of course happens a lot in during sessions, of course. And then there's nothing like, for some people it seems to be this sad part about it somehow. People are scared of it, but it's like when you sort of go there and then you emerge from there in a way, and then there's like going backwards somehow, and realizing like infinite possibilities, and sort of people have visions and experiences, being an animal or being someone else, or even just aspects of themselves, like how would it be if I would be like that, or if that would happen instead of this thing that has happened and has always defined me. What if it didn't happen, and what then? And sort of like to go into all these different aspects with a completely new perspective. And it's I think it's just really interesting, and it can be life altering a lot of times. Yeah, I think that's what I love so much about the inner dance, is that thing to you never know what's gonna happen, and it's always just so expanding. And I think that's how I would describe it, or how I've personally experienced it, and also heard and seen others experience it as well. So
Yeah, it would be interesting to do phenomenological research where you guys are at. It's like Iceland is Iceland, but it's an island born out of fire, like all these volcanoes. And then the Gisli just had a birth, like his son was just born, and his wife had the most confusing kind of Iceland volcano experience where at the time of their son's birth, her dad was also dying. So I'm reading this book on awe. It's about awe, like the science of awe. And the book starts out with this author speaking about being the deathbed of her sister. And she's right there, like her sister is dying in front of her, and she's asking herself, like, wow, what is this emotion that I'm feeling? And the intuition said just one word, like, I'm experiencing awe, like right now. So it wasn't like a sadness. There was this beyond like anything she could feel. And her sister was dying and her family members were there, but she was like, wow, wow, So maybe it was even a level of empathy where she was experiencing what her sister might be experiencing. So I was in contact with Una throughout that time when her dad was going through a very, very slow death, but she was in her pregnancy, and I was having to listen to what she was transmitting, like what's going on in an inner dance facilitator, space holder's body, who's becoming the space because so for me, like spending time with babies is as much an inner dance as anything else. Like spend time with the baby and you can't really be in any system of interpretation. But to see it from a black hole space where this baby isn't stupid, this baby isn't nothing, it just came from there. That's like something we should. I think there's so much fear around like death, but I think it would be just as scary to regard that babies just came from there, right? That babies aren't like objects that just came out, but this is like a being that just came from somewhere. So who is it? like how do I communicate with this being in a way that's synchronic? So yeah, like I'm glad you're able to join us once again and transmitting resonance from that space. Very, very cool. Like Paula, so good to see you here.
Hi everyone. Hi. Yeah, so good to be here. Yeah, finally. So, I mean, oh, now I'm really in awe. I'm so grateful to be here, and I wanted to express that. And it's so perfect that I'm here today. So I'm joining this container really late in the linear sense of the word. And when I only decided to join last weekend, and when Christina sent me like the Zoom call schedules, and I saw like, okay, 3rd October, and it is my birthday today. So my first thought, yeah,
No.
yeah, and I'm alive, so it's very good news. Um, and so I saw the schedule, and I was like, yeah, no, it's my birthday, so I'm going to see the recording, to watch the recording. Then I was like, well, I think it's the perfect celebration. Like maybe that sounds like very lame, but for me, like to me, it's like I really want to be there and I want to celebrate because of what I've been through this last year, and it's so perfect because for me, it's been 1 year, 1.5 years, but it was like a few months to get into the experience and then a few months to get out of the experience. And it was this big death. And so my thinking was like, oh, this is such a nice way to welcome my rebirth, because I'm feeling this year as a rebirth, and it's like, okay, let's do it. And then this is the orange, and I started talking about the black hole and all of that, and I'm going to share like a very human experience that maybe can become something else. And so I've been in the inner dance, in the energy. I experienced the black hole and the wormhole. But what I want to share is like this last year I've been through this very dark death, night of the soul, whatever, that took me completely by surprise. I wasn't expecting that. I've been through many deaths and rebirths and understanding the deconstruction and the destruction and all of that. But this was like next level. And I've been fascinated by death since I'm a kid. I'm very like I wanted to see dead people. I wanted to study medicine and open corpses and things like that. When I go into the void, it feels so comfortable. It's like, oh, it feels so peaceful. It feels like home. But apparently, it wasn't very integrated in me because I was feeling this very deep death, like everything was disappearing, dissolving around me. And I was so scared, so scared. And I was not seeing or talking to anyone for 1 year, but I kept offering my sessions, okay, and sharing and holding the space. I was talking to a couple of friends who also are in the energy, and I kept repeating, like, this is like I'm this fucking black hole, but it's so deep, and there is no light, and there is no light, and there is no time. And I was getting super disoriented, and I kept saying, like, it feels like this week it's been like 1 year, and it's been like 1 minute at the same time. And I couldn't, it was so difficult to me to know what day of the week it was. And I would go through things like just passing out and like being at home and passing out. And it was like normal, like, okay, this is normal. But I was now listening to you and revisiting the experience and realizing that I was living it through my own story and my own interpretation. I didn't let go of my system of interpretation. So in my head, it's like, oh my God, I'm having panic attacks. I haven't slept for 1 year. I have anxiety. I'm sick. My family was begging me to take antidepressants or something like that. I was having these very deep, scary thoughts about death, and like, maybe I want to die. Like, I want to die. That would feel so good because everything was so intense. And at the same time, I couldn't see it in any other way. It's just I'm sick, all the work I've done, like I'm an imposter because I do all this work and then I'm going through this, and who am I to hold the space for anyone? But then I was going to the sessions and it was so healing. Like in 1 hour, I was feeling like everything was like realigning, and you're like, I feel so good. Everything else is an illusion. But then I went back to my reality from Monday to Friday, and I was like, not even understanding, like, why am I experiencing this and creating this? And it was so crazy. So I'm just wondering now what would happen if I was able to just surrender to that and let go of the system of interpretation and see what was in there for me. And all that 1.5 years, I was like, I want to get out of the energy. I don't want to do the energy work anymore. So I was working on my new project that I was about to launch this month. And then 1 month ago, during a session, it was like, you have to offer a training. You have to offer a training with the energy. And he's like, no, I'm ready with my new project, but again and again. And he's like, okay, let's do it. So I just announced my first training. And all of a sudden, it's like, go back to inner dance. And now I find myself like going back like this to this in this circle and going back to where I was like 4 years ago. And it's not that I wanted to get out of the energy. I just need to experience it in a different way. I'm from a different place. I'm holding the space for me and everyone else in a different way. And going back to my sound, I didn't do like I did sound before I was working with the energy. That's how I came into the energy. That's how everything opened for me. And I was like, no, I don't want to do sound anymore. I don't want to do sound anymore. I stopped offering my ceremonies and everything for 1 year and a few months. And now it's like, I only want to do sound. That's the only thing I want to do. And so I was listening to you and I was revisiting everything. And also realizing how when you talk sometimes about changing the past, because we just experience it in a different way. We are able to see it in a different way. But when I was there in the black hole, it was like, fuck, I want to get out of here. It felt so deep. But now I was listening to you and it's like, it's so beautiful. Like, is it like, can I wish for any other birthday present than this? After the year I had that I wanted to kill myself, I didn't want to kill myself. I wanted to die. Like I wanted to die. And I don't know, I had many notes and the cassette thing with the dreams. And I was super worried. I was like, I don't know if I should be holding the space because I think like everything is shut down for me. And I wasn't dreaming at all. And I couldn't recall anything. And I wasn't like, the couple of hours that I got any sleep, it's like nothing was going on. And so I was like, and now listening to this, it's like, oh my God, this is so interesting.
Which was doing nothing. And it happened again on Monday. And he did.
So that's it. Maybe it doesn't make any sense. And it's very human, and at the same time, I think we can see how it's human something else. And it's amazing. I'm so happy I decided to be here today. It's perfect. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
I think I would speak for everyone by saying we all feel born. Just listening to you, this is a gift for everyone. It's just so awful, full of awe to just you can hear it almost like make clicking noises when something is turning. And it's coming from this super authentic space, because you'd hear birth and death all the time, but you can almost like hear it and see it and you would smell it and taste it when someone is dying and being born in that most perfect, like the Ouroboros is a serpent eating its own tail, which is also kind of a yin and yang. we would know it. The true inner dance is when the dark night of the soul is also the unitive state, and it's not anymore bipolar. So don't let go. I mean, we're speaking that to all of us. Don't let go. When going into the Carlos Castañeda stories, Carlos is asking Don Juan, like, how do you maintain this connection with spirit? He said, I'll tell you a secret. I keep my death over my left shoulder. Somewhere just a little bit behind me, I maintain the presence of my death like it was my greatest teacher. And when I keep it there, then I am alive. You know, that's when life happens. So we heard so many stories and it's all talking about the same thing. And I don't think we would get tired of this because this is what we're yearning for. Travel around the world and people are denying death, terrified of death. And then when you hear people who are not scared of death anymore, it's like you can feel possibility. It's more potent. Like we're not scared of anything anymore. That's when we become simple, I think. Less hungry, less needy. It's like we're just okay. Everything is good. Sandrine, then Ahlan or Fanny. Sandrine? Yeah,
Hello.
you're there. Hi.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Because I'm wearing that. Okay. So nice to see everyone again because it's been a while that I could make it to the online sessions in the evening. It's been one hell of a journey already, and I think you have been updated for the biggest part by Sophie. And that's why also I've got two things that I wanted to talk about. Is the first is a little bit like I started as a big skeptic, like, oh, what is this for method and how safe is it working around those energies and with those energies, with people, with children, how can we hold space in the most safest way. But I think that it's all been that inner dance journey for me to go into that trust. And it started for me for a few times in a session that always there was something that wanted to come out of me. And it started with, like in daily life, I have a loud voice, but when I'm surrounded by a lot of people, I do something with my voice. I don't know what, and it makes that I can't speak up. Or when I'm in a space where there's also music, I can't get over the volume of the music. But I have a loud voice of my own, but there is something happening that I can't get out. So I know there is something hidden, or there was something here. And over now, the year and a half that I did inner dances, it was also always working around that point, that sometimes I just start doing one scream, but I always felt the scream, I could not feel that it was mine, the scream, or that it was like related to one memory or something. But it was something old, and it was something raw, and it was something with anger. And then afterwards I don't know from where it came, but also then I yelled sometimes, let me go, let me go, let me go. But I can't see from where it was. And every time I went a bit deeper, but then I did the sound healing journey, the weekend with Flor. And I was there also with Sophie. And then that was like the experience that there was sound healing weekend, but I did the inner dance on Saturday. And I don't know what happened with my body, but I know that I started in and there was a lot of mosquitoes, and that I was thinking, and the mind said like, oh no, okay, it's not gonna happen today because I felt bitten by those mosquitoes, and I was always like, oh, itchy, 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 and I was scratching and scratching. So I felt, okay, it's not gonna be the one. So I was like, okay, I hope I can fall asleep, and for the rest, we will see what this inner dance is gonna bring me. But then from one kind of moment, he played one song, and that one song was the song of I lost 2 years ago. I think I already said one of my bestest friends who by suicide, and it was a long journey of mourning. How do you say it in English? To process it, and I always felt like I processed it, like I processed the fact that my father was not present in my life. Like, okay, when he's not here, I just erase him, and when he's there, he's there. And I could see that my coping mechanism also in the process with her was getting on, like she's like also on a vacation or she's working abroad, like that. My coping, I could have my tears and everything, but it doesn't go to the other layers. Or I felt like I was making all the positive things, yes, but I see the flowers and I see the this and I see the that. But this, in the dance, at some point, there was one song, and it was a song that was played on the funeral of her. But it was not a usual song. It's not like a very commercial song. So the fact that it was been played there, that was for me the, and then I was gone. But I said, oh, I'm getting emotional again. But I went so deep. I went so deep. And my body was getting tense, and it pulled me up, it pulled me up, it pulled me up, it pulled me up, my toes and everything. It went so deep, and then there was some screaming, or I don't know, it was like some kind of beast. I can't explain. It was inside me. It was yelling, yelling, yelling. It was like something needed to get out of me. And I had my eyes closed. There was no time, there was no space. There was nothing. And I screamed and I screamed and I screamed, but it was not like I can't explain a scream because I never scream. You know what I mean? So I can't scream. When I scream, there's something happening because I can't get over music. And now there was like some kind of three-dimensional, I don't know from which dimension or which earth or which ancestor or which layer of my father's ancestors or my mother, or I don't know from where it came, but it was so deep. And then after that, the tears came, but I was not there. But in the same way, I felt safe, and that's the crazy thing. And the same way I felt, was it her presence or what is the universe? But I felt held to open up, to scream. But it was not like a lady. I see a spider or something. It was yeah. Sorry for the example, but it was like a raw. It was like a manly raw coming from so deep with hurt, but with anger and with like I need to get out of get rid of me. Or I can't explain how far it went, and my body kept on being in that arise state. And then after that, it went down, and then the tears can come, and then I cry, but like a little baby, like for more than a half hour. And then again, then I felt that everybody was coming around me. I felt being held, but I was in time, out of the time. And after that, it came again. It was like, no, you're not ready. You're not ready. So again, for the second time, my body went all fixed up. And again, there was a scream, but I could not do it over because I can't remember. You know, I have a feeling what it was, but I can't explain what it was. But it was so big that needed to go out, and I never experienced that in my life. And afterwards, but the afterglow of the pain and the hurt and the tears and being free or being and even more because it didn't have a real context. It didn't have a real memory or words or language or anything. It was not that my tears were coming because I was thinking about, it's because of that or it's because of that. No, it was just the emotion in the purest form. It was crazy. It was really crazy. But it really gave me just such a relief on that Saturday. And on Sunday evening we did a party for the birthday of Floor. And then it's just like it's all that we're guided to all those moments. And then there was the drums and the music, and my body needed to dance, and I danced like I never danced before, and felt it went so deep. And that's the inner journey of me already that I've been doing for a few weeks, like really going into the root part of my Congolese part, because I'm very, very Western white race, and with an absence of my father because of his work. But now I'm reconnecting with everything on such a crazy level. And that also brought me, I was just talking about Sophie yesterday, like, how come that I come here with the Centrum in my daily life? I work in a school in Antwerp, and I also work a lot with refugees, but I never made the direct link. And in the summer, I went on a holiday with my father and my siblings, and he has like a kidney problem, so it's also not defined how many years he's gonna have left. But we were like really start trying to do the real story. We have the story of our mother, but what's your story? So we collected all the stories. We put it on a micro. We collected them all, and he talked about all his migration and how he flooded a few times when he was small, and what he all experienced of trauma in his life that we never knew. So he also talked to us about everything. So now, from a friend who calls to say like, yeah, I'm searching for someone who wants to work in to do some around resilience in a center for migration. And then I thinking, maybe the under dance is the biggest step before I really gonna do the psychophysics things. And now the work that we could do there, it's like it's like the cohesion of all the factors, the fact that we can do this for them and how the effects are already so big on them. This is so crazy. This is really crazy. And also now, like for the kids saying like, oh, are you coming again? Are you coming again? Then the mothers now are like, hey, my kids, they can come to sleep, but when can we come? When can we come? Because I can also not fall asleep. And I can see that my children now sleep. So now we're reorganizing. Yeah, so we said, okay, we're gonna organize it, and we are now at like 3 new older boys, and one of them said, yeah, my friend will not come, and the one who came the first time, after a half hour, another one klopped on the door because he thought that the other one was doing PlayStation there. So, and then he saw them laying down, and then he said, maybe can I also lay down? We said, yeah, do it. And he only had like the last 15 minutes of it, and he came out of it and he said, what is this? What is this? I have no words. I have no words. My mind is clear. I had so many stress. I had so many things to do. My mind is clear. When are you coming again? I want it again. I want it again. Another one who was just there from Syria, was just 2 months and a half there. He said, I haven't been sleeping for more than a week. I have so much stress. I can't feel peace in myself. And I'm laying there and I slept for 1 hour. I could, yeah. So, yeah, this is a big example for me of being the skeptic that says, oh my goodness, I'm so thankful. And loving the work that we can do and the process around it. So, yeah.
I can sense there's something big that would come out of this work in the asylum center, the refugee center. And I think we're needing these models. I mean, the lady who started inner dance in Belgium was Rwandan, partly. She's back in Africa.
Also Carolina.
Yes. So there's something about Africa and Belgium that really is meant to, so to at least even work with young bodies. There's something very respectable and holistic, and I think you just had to pass through that threshold. It's, you know, there's the door and then there's the room. So you guys through the last weeks passed through the door, but I think now you're in the room. And how I see it is a lot of facilitators, you just need to pass through the door. And then, you know, when you're in the room, there's no work to be done. It's going to work itself out. You just have to show up, and then it's just going to keep spreading no matter how slow. And then word of mouth and so on and so forth. But there's something about this, I think, that should be brought all across the West and the North, where equality and decolonization and the stories, they reach some kind of middle space, and it needs to be in the dream space. And I like it that the sleep element is coming up, because you can bring about like the the concept of dreaming later on. It just feels safe. So keep us updated, and if there could be ways of capturing data, however qualitative, and maybe even later, just simple questions. If it doesn't kill the energy, I think a lot of people would be really interested to learn from what both of you are doing over there.
Yeah, I really gonna make our work out of it, because I feel also in the schools that are working, there is a lot of progress, and you see that it helps. There was another thing that I wanted to talk about, and it's regarding my son. And it's because I don't know if there is a relation with me doing the inner dance. Probably there is. But since he is 7, it's like since July, or no, maybe 2 months before, he's starting having a really gigantic nightmare. But the nightmares are compared with night walking, or how do you say it? Sleepwalking. But he is like awake. So it's awake, not awake. So he is like in a tiny dimension, but he's really, as a boy, he is a really peaceful boy. We always called him our little Buddha when he was born. He was always had like a very big natural peace in him. He's a very gentle, peaceful boy. But since then, at night, he is like always in some kind of war zone. So then he's screaming, he's yelling, he's walking around here through the room, or he's walking down the stairs and it's always like, because he wanted to help someone, or I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, or I'm not worthy, or um, um, I'm sorry that I couldn't help, that I couldn't save those people. Sometimes also he's speaking in another language. So he's speaking, I can't say it's yeah, it is a language, but I can't say it's which kind of, it's not a European language, but it's like maybe it's an African language. I already asked my father, but he couldn't translate. But he's like talking, and chakaboka, it's really like that he's talking in his sleep, but he's like a warrior. He's really yeah, it's really crying, and he can't, it really takes a long time to get him into peace. And also because he's such a peaceful boy in the day, it's so hard as a mother seeing him in the night in that kind of fear. He's really into the biggest fearful place. But when he wakes up, he doesn't remember. So I know there is some kind of nightmare, the sacral, what was the name again? But I don't think it's the same, because he is really like he's awake but not awake. So he's opening his eyes, but when I see, do you see me? Do you know who I am? Then he calls me Melia and my other daughter or someone else. So he knows that we are people there, but he couldn't. He's not here. He is somewhere, but he's not here. And the other thing around it, I can see that Melia, my daughter, is also a place in the story, because he always she, it's not only that she wakes up from he being in his nightmare, but it's like she has some kind of beschermen, how do you say it? Allez, like she has to, allez, hold
Protection.
him. Yeah, protection. So like she has some kind of protection. So it's always like when we're still downstairs, because sometimes it's always like a quarter after an hour. So a quarter past 11 or a quarter past 12. So it's also started always at the same moment. And when it's around full moon, 2 days, it's like to it stop. And then it's really, really, really intense. And I'm so, yeah, I now I just try to be with him and say, it's not your burden, it's my burden. I'm gonna take it over. I'm gonna do it with you. Okay, we go together to the family. We will rescue them together, or it's okay. So I'm not trying to get him out of it, but I try to walk beside him. But I don't know if that's the good way, because it's already since July it's happening.
Have
Since May, March.
tried playing some music while he's sleeping, like the noise app or the sleep playlist?
No. The sleep playlist now, and then it's a bit better, or it's more intense. I can't say that it's.
I think the noise app would. My feeling is, or my reading on this is, Kundalini is epilepsy, and he's experiencing surges while he's sleeping, whilst maybe his parietal and frontal lobe are highly active. I feel the surges are happening in the parietal and the frontal lobe, while at the same time he's accessing REM state, which is quite rare. Normally, for you to access REM state, you need to go through non-REM 1 and non-REM 2 stages, so that by the time you're in non-REM 3, you're supposed to be paralyzed. The muscular paralysis is really important. But epileptics and spiritual people and somewhat crazy people like us, we don't have the same barriers. So another name for that is low latent inhibition. He doesn't have the filtration mechanism. Although some people like who are on the spectrum or has because schizophrenia and spiritual awakening, there's no gaps there in some ways when you look at the chemistry and the circuitry. And because maybe, he has the African backdrop, he's maybe holding on to right brain awareness. And maybe that's a way that he's not losing gifts that come with his lineage or ancestry. I would still experiment with music, maybe more delta state, because there's still some neuroplasticity there happening. So maybe seeing it as like a neurogenesis, like cell growth, synaptic connections, myelination. It's just a matter of training, so that if he acclimatizes to the music being there and it's more like in the background, it doesn't need to be loud. What you would help him with is the desensitization of the trigger mechanisms, because obviously he's dealing with certain emotional and psychological elements, but his body wouldn't allow him to do that if he wasn't in trust. Otherwise, like latent inhibition would be high, so that he would not allow himself to go into that state. Like any soul that allows that amount of channeling is quite brave, because if they're able to retain that all the way through, it comes with gifts. But the difficulty there is you have to be quite open to the world. Like you have to stay vulnerable, and a lot of children would rather just close up that level of sensitivity. So sound at least can assist him in retaining the gamma vibrations and the delta. If you can find like whatever delta, he's probably already emitting the gamma which is usually what spreads activation in some of the areas that I'm talking about. But to help him hold the delta, would at least, it could be as simple as white noise or you know, some low tone would at least help him to release enough GABA to more or less like assist the parasympathetic, so that normally when you go into the REM state, what needs to be absent is serotonin and norepinephrine, which often leads to still the human parts that are acting out the drama that you pick up during the day. In REM state, your norepinephrine needs to be very, very low, and serotonin, so that you can consolidate the short-term memory into long-term memory. But if he's still living out the day, it means that he's not releasing enough of you know, through the sleep spindles and the key complexes that needs to happen in the early stages that would lead him into REM state. Holding more of the delta would allow more, maybe the slow wave sleep that he might be missing, because it would be dangerous if he's not getting the non-REM 3 or enough delta. So even while he's awake, you can play it in the background. Even if he doesn't fall asleep, if the anxiety levels it's amazing that he has you as his mother, that you're holding the space for other kids. So you already have these tools. He's the one you should be experimenting with, like subliminal, not too loud, super duper low. His brain would still pick it up.
Yeah, but I know that I started doing in the beginning with the womb room, and they were all like, no, what is
it's
this?
too intense.
No,
Don't
no,
use that.
what is this?
No, not that. No, not
and,
that.
so that's why I stopped doing that, but I put on the REM, or the rest and digest. I put it on the last 2 nights because it was so intense the last week, he sleeps with me into the bed. Because he falls asleep like nothing, but then he wakes up, and because he always wakes up, and he wakes up in the morning, not in his own in bed. Then he knew, oh no, I had it again. So he doesn't know that he that he came to me and what happened. And now he has some kind of feeling in his room, like I don't want to sleep in my room.
Just
my room
put it very, very low. Definitely the womb room would have been too intense for him. Even just look for 2 noises in the my noise, and then just keep it on a loop. Not even I think even the sleep playlist might be a little bit intense. When maybe a few weeks of desensitization, he would be ready for almost anything. And then he would really be able to process in his sleep. But right now, just work from a subliminal, like really quiet space. And then let us know. Really interesting too.
Yeah. Thank you for the explanation. And also, can you just explain why it is much intenser with full moon? What is that?
Epilepsy is really just a synchronization of neural activity, and full moon is heightened magnetism. So it could be sensitivity to music, certain foods, beverages, but the full moon is really the magnetism levels in the earth are high, so the water in the body would react to that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, amazing. All right. Ahilan or Fanny, you can help close. I saw you guys had your hand up. Then we can end soon. And Una wanted to share, but she's gone.
Hi, this is Fanny. A lot of things came up for me, and I was kind of like trying to pick one story of dimensionality through my experience. And actually, with all the layers of what happened in all the sharings. I feel like what is interesting when we go into dimensionality or the black hole, and now it came up like the black hole of the soul and not the dark night of the soul, is to like concepts don't exist anymore. Like being in that space is really like, because everything exists while nothing exists. Even the concept of time doesn't even make sense to try to understand. And then when we come back to this kind of like 3D reality, it's just interesting because the concept of time itself cannot be the same that we have had experience that doesn't exist. Kind of like this, there's no time, but there's all time at the same time, like together in the single point. So I find it very challenging being in these polarities when we go into dimensionality and kind of like bringing the brain into an integration to understand these, and while being in it, there's not this understanding of this unity, or like everything tried to be kind of like, I'm seeing it as a like poles, like poles being like moving together. Like everything is just movement. Everything cannot be fixed or finite or defined, and it's just very interesting to see how when we're here, we're trying to define everything. We're trying to put meaning or to try to understand, to reflect on this, on that. Like everything is becoming a thing by itself. But being in the dark night of the soul, or the black hole, there's just existence that is in the space, and existence also is the non-existence of it. So I don't know if I'm very clear into what I'm trying to explain as the experience I have had, but there's really this like different conceptualization of things that are just coming together. And it's not something that can be explained or described or put together in the meaning that we hold as the language that we have, whatever language we're holding. So it's kind of like coming back to an experience I had with like understanding what sound is. And that's the polarity of sound and image that we're holding. Like the image is something that we see, we perceive, that is very, very present. Like the visual sense is very present. But what sound is holding and how inner dance is bringing sound into place is so penetrating. It goes into all spaces in the body. It's like there's no space to hide. There's no space to be distracted from. Like sound goes everywhere. It's just like this, it takes over everything in a way, and in such a gentle way, in such like a soft and gentle way. And this brings us to understand like this empty space that is held in the black hole, and this kind of like molding of whatever we want to be existing in the 3D space. Like everything can be like this infinite potential can exist, or not even can or cannot, just exist by itself as we navigate this. And it's like I've seen this image of like how we perceive the solar system, and it's still like a 2D like drawing of like the circles and then the planets, and we can just imagine that they're moving, but actually the sun is moving and the planets are moving around it. Like we're always within movement. And so the concept of something being fixed or not moving or blocked, or like, it kind of like, it doesn't make sense of it to exist. And in the infinite space that we enter, would it be just like a simple regular session, or deeper experiences that we go through, and it's not necessarily through inner dance, we go through hardships in life that bring us into the black hole sometimes. And this is just an understanding of what else is present in reality that we haven't yet been able to make into a meaning itself. And so that is why we are afraid of it. And that is why we have a hard time understanding really the comfort that we are looking into, because when we can put something finite, this is when we can find a way to feel safe with the thing. And so when it's infinite, it's a lot of the time something that we cannot feel, that the body and the space we hold can feel anytime secure in it. So yeah, it's something I feel that I'm picking up from a lot of the experiences I've had in the black hole, or in traveling within the universe, and in aphasia. And it's really an interesting thing to do, to try to bring this into a language or into words that would define it, when it's almost not a possibility by itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's close. So thank you everyone for staying with it for this long. What we're doing is we spread it out to look at something so deep in a way that's a long way. And we could go on for like a decade or 100 years, and we would see a glimpse of it, yet it is possible to also see it in but a moment. You know that saying, to hold infinity in a grain of sand, or heaven in a wildflower. So yeah, we're on our way to yellow, and I think this is when things start to get grounded in a more maybe even prescriptive way. Some people are expecting, okay, so with all these frameworks, like where do we go from here? What do we do with this? So yeah, it feels like we just had to pass through the gateway, and it feels like this was important somehow, that we all have been all together in whatever shape or form through synchronicity, making our way through here. This is stating beyond just this particular course process between us. There's something coming. There is dimensionality on its way, but we need enough context to allow that to happen as it will, like safely, because it is going to be deep. There's something in people's brains, in people's nervous systems, bodies, minds, that's well designed to, like, it's elastic like a rubber band. It's really pulled tight, it's taut, and then it's like it's just gonna snap. But the snapping, it's instantaneous, but in its constancy, it will sustain. So it won't seem like a snap. So you're going to be located somewhere in a space and time where all of your experiences will be quite valuable to help anchor the world that is going to get unhinged. That's what we would call 2025. Fanny is in the playlist called Being. I suggest that it's interesting to study as the orange, playlist. It's not something to lay down to. It's something to bring on as phenomenological research. Around, that was around the time when people were beginning to notice that their bodies weren't moving, like that there were these inner dances that were happening where bodies were still, but it seemed like something deeper was happening. So when I say something's coming, I'm not looking at the intense and the wild. I'm seeing more of access to the dream space, the cassette, the library system. And I feel we have enough because we've invested this time and ourselves, and we really just decided to do it together, to put in the time, and no, we couldn't do it alone. It had to be exactly in this way, and all these calls are recorded, and we can just keep going back, and there's more there, and then there's going to be more conversations. This is going to keep spreading as you make it your own. It always has been. So thank you for, I think the word is surviving. You're still here, and you know what they say, if you're still here. If it hadn't killed you, dot, 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 right? You become brighter, wiser, and just overall like a much more cool, radiant human being. So if you could help me to close, wow, it's like I'm blown away, kind of tired. Like so much goes into these calls, to be honest. Like I put in weeks of preparation for every call. So help me to close. Thank you. Good night. Good morning.
Good night.
Buenas
Thank you.
tardes.
Bye-bye.
Gracias.
Night.
Gracias.
Good
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.